This is Griselda Blanco, a female drug lord raised from humble beginnings to a billionaire queenpin ruling a vast cocaine empire. Born poor in Colombia, Blanco clawed her way up from the Medellin slums to become one of the most ruthless female narcos in history. She built a drug empire like no woman before and was one of the strongest rivals to Escobar. This is the story of the daring, cruel, and inventive criminal mastermind Griselda Blanco. Griselda's story starts where she grew up, the slums of Medellin, Colombia. Born in 1943, she never knew her father and was raised by her single mother in extreme poverty. The neighborhood was rampant with drugs and crime, and her mother, being a prostitute, had many clients that were sexually abusing Blanco, beating her viciously if she refused them. Desperate to escape, Blanco ran away at the age of 11. With no money or prospects, she survived on the streets by pickpocketing and even kidnapped a child of a wealthy Colombian family for ransom. But tragically, she ended his life when her family refused to pay, marking her first major criminal act. Soon, at just 14 years old, she married her first husband, Carlos Trujillo, who had connections to the infamous Medellin cartel led by Pablo Escobar. Trujillo introduced Blanco to the world of organized crime, and they emigrated to Queens, New York in the early 1970s. There, they had 3 sons together, Dixon, Uber, and Osvaldo. However, the husband was extremely abusive, and Blanco later claimed that he would beat her frequently and violently. Still, he helped establish her in the emerging cocaine business that would make her a fortune. During her time in New York in the 1970s, Griselda Blanco got deeply involved in cocaine trafficking operations. Even though she was ruthless, she was an incredibly shrewd and innovative businesswoman. She saw huge potential profits from bringing Colombian cocaine to sell in the United States, and started by purchasing the paste from contacts in Colombia, overseeing the lab processing into powder in Queens, then developing distribution networks across the East Coast, from New York City all the way down to Miami. In 1975, tensions rose between Griselda and her husband Carlos. The reason is unknown, but rumors say she suspected he might betray her. As a sign of the cruelty and violence she would become known for, Griselda decided to have Carlos killed. His body was found weeks later, reportedly chopped into pieces. This started her reputation as someone not to cross in the ruthless criminal underworld. Now separated from Carlos, Griselda expanded her own networks and connections. She relocated her operations to Miami, which was emerging as the major drug distribution center for cocaine. Her distribution network grew rapidly across Florida and connected to other major cities like Los Angeles and Houston, earning her millions. However, Miami soon became crowded with other Colombian cocaine operations, causing brutal violence between rival cartel operatives that would last for decades. By the late 1970s, Griselda Blanco had become one of the biggest cocaine traffickers into the United States, importing hundreds of kilos per month and generating tens of millions in profit. She was called the cocaine godmother due to her growing reputation for violence and dominance. Law enforcement agencies noticed her rise, but she was smart and avoided prosecution for years while continuing to expand her empire. To avoid authorities, she diversified her smuggling routes, set up a complex distribution network across the U.S., and bribed law enforcement and political contacts to provide info and protection for her drug shipments. She had also laundered her drug money to invest in real estate and legal businesses. However, the cocaine queen became best known for the brutal violence she regularly used at the smallest sign of betrayal or disloyalty. There was over 250 killings connected to Blanco's Miami operations alone between the mid-70s to mid-80s. One of her trademarks was using hitmen on motorcycles to do drive-by shootings of her enemies. This allowed for easy movement and quick escapes in Miami's crowded city landscape. It is rumored she got the idea from motorcycle assassins she had seen during her childhood. Victims were often killed by the dozens via machine gun on the streets, their bodies left as a warning. This ruthless tactic spread to other traffickers who wanted to copy her vicious style. In one case, Griselda Blanco supposedly faced a rival trafficker who had allowed some of her merchandise to be taken, costing her hundreds of thousands in profit. She reportedly killed his 5-year-old son, chopped the boy's body into pieces, and then threw the bag with his remains in front of the rival as a punishment. And even those closest to Blanco were not exempt from punishment if they betrayed her. It's rumored she personally murdered her third husband, Dario Sepulveda, in 1983 after tensions rose over disagreements in the business. Sepulveda's corpse turned up weeks later, another victim of Blanco's anger against disloyalty, earning her the name the Black Widow. Her reputation helped secure her power and control. By the early 1980s, Griselda was one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the cocaine trade. But even with her fearsome reputation, she had many enemies who wanted to eliminate her and take over her very lucrative cocaine pipeline. The chaotic and violent Miami drug wars started as various factions fought for control of the cocaine economy. Griselda navigated complex alliances and betrayals, ordering the deaths of anyone she saw as a threat to her business. Rival bosses, disloyal underlings, and even family members were not safe from her anger. Her most notorious rival was the head of Medellin cartel, Pablo Escobar, who was rising to power back in Colombia. The two kingpins likely struck deals to cooperate in the past, when they were both up-and-comers in the cocaine trade. But now that they led two of the most dominant drug cartels in the world, tensions escalated into bloody turf wars. This led to bloody fights as Escobar and Blanco ordered hits on each other's associates and family members. Escobar tried unsuccessfully to have Blanco assassinated multiple times, but she managed to survive the attacks by his gunmen. As a response, she killed two of Escobar's top assistants in Colombia as well as an attempt on his own life. But Escobar never forgot this and spent years conspiring with his network. Griselda knew she needed to watch her back, even as her power grew to new heights in America. Griselda's second husband, Alberto Bravo, turned out to be another betrayer who was willing to cross her. He was one of her top lieutenants in charge of cocaine distribution across Miami and Los Angeles, but Alberto made the fatal mistake of withholding money from the profits he owed Griselda. When Griselda found out about this, it led to his doom. In 1981, Griselda sent her team of assassins to ambush Alberto as he exited a parking lot in Colombia. They shot his car more than 30 times, killing him on the spot. His increasing greed ended his life after years of leading Griselda's operations on the West Coast. She could never fully relax or trust those around her. Her severe cocaine addiction and worsening paranoia led her to see traitors and assassins everywhere by the early 1980s. It's said that she regularly kidnapped, tortured, and killed her own employees to find any possible disloyalty or betrayal in her group. Any perceived offense could trigger her explosive temper. If you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to like and subscribe. These videos take up a lot of time, and your support would help make more. Associates reported that she became very thin from cocaine abuse, possibly consuming up to an ounce of coke a day. Her deteriorating mental state and hyperviolent tendencies pushed away many former allies. Law enforcement took advantage of that to finally arrange the takedown of Blanco's operations through sting operations and new informants willing to flip against her. By 1985, the legal team in Miami felt they had enough evidence to take Griselda to court for 30 years of organized crime and murder. The police arrested Blanco at her California home and brought her to Florida to face charges. Her long trial featured witness statements and evidence explaining the size of her huge cocaine empire and direct part in over a dozen murders. In the end, they could prove only few crimes of her, and she was given just 15 years in U.S. federal prison. Additionally, she was charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. In 2004, Blanco finished her sentence and got deported back to Colombia. She lived a quiet life there and kept a low profile for several years. But in 2012, and while Blanco was walking out of a butcher shop, 2 riders on a motorcycle approached and fatally shot her twice in the head before speeding away. It was the same method she used back when she had power. With the many enemies she'd made, it was likely a previous rival felt he owed her a bullet. In the end, Griselda Blanco lived by the sword and ultimately died by it too. Her mythic rags to riches story made her a legend of Miami's bloody cocaine cowboy era. But her ruthless rise left deep scars for the families of her many victims and the communities ravaged by the drug trade she helped spread. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.